Folks, if you are like most fans of AMC Networks' The Walking Dead, you were extremely disappointed in season 6 finale episode. And while there are there are two sides to this argument, of course, that cliffhangers are part and parcel of the TV industry. On the other hand, you have to understand that the fans of The Walking Dead feel that the producers made an unnecessary cheap shot, that this was another cheap tactic of a show that really hasn't resorted to cheap tactics until recently. And fans, of course, are perplexed by the producers' decisions, and they have discussed as such throughout multiple social media platforms. The biggest contention, of course, is who did Negan kill? I should say, I should have given a spoiler warning that I'm about to reveal some details, but really there's no spoiler alert necessary because there were no spoilers in this episode. We saw Negan, the much anticipated bad guy, come in roughly at about the 10-minute mark, 10 minutes before the episode actually ended. And, he kind of gave this whole little spiel. And then we got the kill shot, but we didn't see which character actually got the business end of Lucille, the infamous baseball bat that Negan carries. Well, this is a major decision made by the producers, and this is also a very big risk because you are alienating a significant portion of the fan base by resorting to this cheap tactic. What makes AMC Network particularly vulnerable to the discontent that is rising in social media is that AMC Network, they are a publicly traded company. Their ticker symbol is AMCX. Now, AMCX stock has been very poor. I would argue that this is really the true victim of Lucille. AMCX stock is down about 14-15% year to date. Now, coincidentally, on Monday today, the stock dropped 3%. It was a pretty big drop. Now, am I saying that the stock dropped because of the disaster that was the final episode? No, I'm not saying that at all. But it is interesting to point out, and it also points to the greater risk, the vulnerability that because AMCX is publicly traded, it is subject to market volatility. And because they're not a major corporation like, say, ABC, they do have to pay attention to their bread and butter products. And one of their bread and butter products is obviously The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead, from a financial perspective, benefits greatly from the fact that it has one of the highest profit margins for the producers. This generous margin is not going to be there indefinitely. At some point, they're going to have to give significant pay raises to the leading actors. We also have to consider some technical factors regarding AMCX stock that I think puts them in a more vulnerable situation as compared to other stocks in the markets. Number one, the short interest is very high. It's historically, when you look at the short interest, those that hold a short position against AMCX, it is elevated. Now that could, you can view that, of course, as a contrarian opportunity, but then you also consider that the institutional ownership of AMCX stock is very high at 93%. 93%. That means that here's the thing why it's dangerous to have too much institutional ownership, because institutional ownership means that AMCX stock is held by fund managers. Fund managers are graded on a quarterly basis on their portfolio's performance, how they manage the portfolio. if they find that there is a stock that is underperforming, they'll dump it. And that means, at 93%, that's a lot of fund managers that potentially could dump AMCX if it does not meet expectations in the markets. Finally, the insider ownership of AMCX stock is very, very low, less than 1%. That is extremely problematic because there's a disconnect between the executives, how they lead the company, and their leverage towards the company in which they are leading. Meaning that they are making decisions that may not necessarily be in the best interest of the shareholder because they don't hold that much shares of AMCX. I've got a problem with that. I've got a problem with too much insider ownership coupled with too much institutional ownership coupled with too little insider ownership, executive ownership. And then you look at the short interest, people holding bearish positions against AMCX stock. This is turning out to be a pretty bad situation. Ultimately, the true victim of Negan could very well be AMC Networks' own stock.